And welcome back to another episode of Life from the Inside Out with Kris. And I'm your host, Dan Winkle, and I'm glad you're here with us. We're going to be doing some deep trance channeling with Kris and really soaking in some wisdom and really interesting ideas. Last episode, we talked about cycles, and we were getting a little bit into self mastery and really trying to understand how we create our personal reality. And Kris was beginning to come up with some ideas, and it was time to move into the next show. So here we are, and Kris is already with us. So let's get started.
Indeed, we trust that you are comfortable once again, and we thank you for the consideration.
Yes, thanks, Kris.
Speaking of cycles, if you step back, as the saying goes, way back, way, way back, you will see even the formation of systems, solar systems, planets, also function in a cyclical manner. It is not random, haphazard, as some might want to think. Everything functions within certain parameters. And that is indeed the beauty of that kind of experience, because you know how, or in knowing how certain systems work, you can take advantage in a beautiful and delightful manner to always maintain yourself, to always stay on track with your own experiences and not get wayside, distracted. And recognizing how your own inner thinking cycles also function, you can better organize the layout of your day, not such or in such a fashion that, you know, at 10 o'clock you're going to get rich, at 11 o'clock you're going to spend all the money. These are just random examples, even though they're not random. But the idea is that you can set into motion particular cycles. For instance, you get up in the morning instead of, and this needs training, so become a mental athlete, not just a physical one, but a mental athlete. Instead of waking up in the morning and immediately jumping into all the worst possible things that can derail your day. And while certain there are millions of people that fall into that trap, instead, train yourself so that the moment you become consciously aware, even the moment before, and you can do this, that hypnagogic state that exists between sleep and waking, you can pause for a moment before you become fully aware and awake, conscious, and immediately begin to churn out, begin to turn out the tone of your feelings so that they are optimized for setting up a delightful, fulfilling day, or a delightfully fulfilling day. It is entirely within the realm of possibilities. If you set that up, you will actually find yourself in such an alignment with your own inner and innate cycles and nature that the day will flow beautifully, and it will seem to you as if you have never had such a beautiful day before. And that is true. You never have had such a beautiful day, because today is today. Yesterday is yesterday, and tomorrow does not exist. So for this day, you wake up, you set up the tone or the parameters of your day, that you will have and experience the most delightfully beautiful and productive day imaginable for yourself. and stay on that track. Keep that tone as you go about. Perhaps you go shower, brush your teeth, and then you go make breakfast. You get dressed and ready for work, head to work, and so on. Keep that tone going. And the day itself may pass rather quickly, but in such a way that you might even wonder, why did I not do this before? Why did I let all the little things get under my skin and derail my thinking patterns? Why do I not do this every day? Very good question. Then do this every day. Set it up. If you can set up the worst possible day for yourself, imagine what it would be like to set up the best, delightfully and beautiful day possible. This is in the nature of your own thoughts. So it is like opening the hood of your car. This time it is the hood of your mind. By making use of those special qualities of the conscious mind to set the tone for the day. And then you set the engine for the day. Close the hood and drive into the experience. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, and I'm intrigued as to why we would set up uh, these circumstances of expecting the worst. It seems to me like
It
uh
is very simple. You have been accustomed and you think it's actually a worthwhile experience. You think as a species that if you set that up, then you will have no surprises. The worst will come and hit you between the eyes, and you will say, I knew it.
or we're protecting ourselves against something worse by
Yes,
setting
so
that up.
you are mm, literally predicting your own day. You are setting yourself up to experience the worst possible day because it is what you're expecting. Change the tone of your expectation, attitudes, and so on. And if you are able to do that for 1 hour, you are able to do it for two, for eight, for 10, 12, for 24, for the next 2 days, for the next week, for the next month, and the following year. And you will never, ever look back. You might even think, what a strange thing it is to expect that I should have the worst possible day because this is what my ancestors told me to expect. So this is just ancestral trauma. You are literally traumatizing yourselves with this kind of experience. You can end that cycle. Hmm? Speaking of cycles, all the ancestral traumas and dramas, you can end them. Has to do with your attitudes and expectations, the state of your mind, self-management. Does that make sense?
Oh, it does, and in my observation, it does take some time, and I say that because I've been playing around with that idea perhaps for 6 or 7 years now. And there are some days where I'm like, where have all the you know, I don't want to say bad people, but where all the violent people and where all the people that are out to get me, where have they gone? It is sometimes there's these moments of like, what happened to all that stuff? But with practice, it really does fade away. And I think it'll take for me at least more some more practice. I think I can get even more skilled at it. Uh, but it takes some time, but it really works eventually.
Indeed, it does. It is not an instant fix, but once you grab onto it, once you taste that nectar, you will not go back. You will most likely even eschew any ideas that somehow or other you desired the worst possible outcome for yourself. And you may perhaps momentarily question your sanity, but let it go and just concentrate on what you are creating today. And yes, you are correct. After some time, it seems as if all those so called negative experiences may or may not have happened, but you're happy with the positive outcomes you're creating today. That is what is important. Does it mean that somehow or other you're going to stick your head in the sand and ignore everything about reality? Of course not. Only a foolish person would say that. What it does mean is that you will not let certain events, conditions, or even other people get under your skin. You will recognize not only the sacredness of your own being, but the sacredness of all beings.
Well, and it's interesting too, Kris, in that, for the viewers, when you begin that process of establishing that attitude and perceptions you're talking about, the things perhaps in the past that were challenging, perhaps even at the time, something you could have considered like an abusive relationship, as you change your own perceptions, the relationship you have in this moment to that relationship also changes. You may see, oh, well, that person was deeply traumatized rather than this sort of monster that you might have made them out
Correct.
to be.
Indeed, and this speaks directly to Joseph's upbringing, with his stepfather being extremely abusive on all counts. It took a long time for Joseph to realize that his own stepfather had experienced similar things in his growing up and passed the trauma on. It's the only thing he knew. Once Joseph understood that he could still love his stepfather, the entire tone of the psyche changed. It was altered deeply and profoundly. And now, if Joseph even cares to look back at some of those experiences, they will not have the same impact. And they have changed. So that particular reality no longer exists in those terms. Does that also make sense?
Yeah, yeah, and I've had similar experience. As I was trying to get at.
Yes. So it is possible to change your reality in this particular way, in a profound, healing, and nurturing way. Absolutely. And do not take our word for it. Do not even take Joseph's word for it. Try it out for yourself. It is the only way you will know.
Well, and it seems something else grows from that type of perspective. If have seen people like that, then the word that's coming to mind is compassion, is what develops.
Absolutely. Once that tone of loving compassion begins to take root, it does completely transform the mental and psychological landscape, meaning the psyche. Completely changes it. Whereas before, you might have had a dystopian psychological landscape, something reminiscent of those after nuclear war movies that exist in your psyche. Something changes. And that kind of dystopian psychological landscape completely transforms into a, we want to be careful. We will use the word utopian, but not in a sappy way, not in a religious way, but more so that you no longer have to struggle. You can allow love to come and go, to reach you and to reach others, and to embrace all of life. Because at the very basis of everything is that very beautiful thing you call love. But even your human interpretation of it is limited. It goes way beyond anything you can imagine. It makes the sunlight. It makes the color in your hair, the color in your eyes. It makes the words that come into your mind. It makes the houses. It makes the buildings. It makes the nature in conjunction with your own perceptions. Because it is the fabric of life. It is the tissue of existence. Now, we will not wax poetical, but you get the gist.
Yeah, that's deep, but profound, and it makes sense.
Mm. And there is only one way to experience it, and that is directly for yourselves. Again, not through some supernatural sky being or agency, but rather through your own direct, deeper perceptions. The part of you that is intimately connected to that kind of love. And it is in everyone. It is in your tissue. It cannot be not in you. It is not possible. Do forgive us for using double and triple negatives, but you understand.
I do, and I'm also appreciating the cycles, and I believe it was in the last episode. We've gone back to and circled back around to the source of that life fulfillment that we were talking about earlier.
Yes.
It seems to me that would be that loving presence or loving background that's infusing everything.
And if you, anyone cares to attune themselves to this particular tone that resides deep within even the fabric of the cellular structures and the atoms and molecules and the quanta and the consciousness within, you will fall in love. And it's the only way to express it. But not just to your regular human way of falling in love, but loving in such a way that you can understand the language that speaks when the world is formed, when you walk in nature, when you see other beings. That too is love. Your own life is love. Or you may think, oh, my life is crappy and shitty. That's your attitude. It is not life. That is your attitude and perception. Change the perception, and you may say, yes, actually, the very fabric and tissue of my being is made, it is stitched together with units of love. But you have to see that. No one can make you see it. You have to choose that. So those who say there's no choice in life are wrong. If you choose to see that, then your life can significantly transform itself. But no one can do it for you. No one can force you to it. You have to acquiesce. You have to allow. Because it will, we warn you, it will transform your life. Now you're warned. So on the video, you can put a big warning label
I could add some special effects. Why not?
Indeed. Now then, is there perhaps one final observation or inquiry?
No, I don't. Not right now. I was bringing up a lot of the things as they were coming up, so I think that it really ties it up.
Indeed, and perhaps some of the watching and listening audience might like to posit questions along these very lines for further discussion.
I like that idea. You
Indeed,
could drop it in the comments below.
indeed. In that case, then, we return you to your own comments about life. And remember, what you wish for usually is what you get.
All right, thanks, Kris. Really appreciate it.
Indeed, then, we return Joseph to your lovely selves.